My name's Chris. I'm a professional bike fitter of 20 years, and I'm going to take you through the geometry changes of the new Trek Domane Gen 5 that has just been released recently. If you're not familiar, the Trek Domane is Trek's endurance bike. These endurance bikes typically have more of a focus on comfort. So what I want to do is compare it to the last Domane, the Gen 4, just so you know what has actually changed and how it's likely to influence your riding position. When I'm doing these comparisons, I generally pick one frame size. I'm an average height for a rider, 179 roughly. So Trek recommend I ride a large Domane, which they also call a 58 centimeter as well. So what has stayed the same with the new Domane? Reach length, 380 millimeters, identical to the last one. So the handlebars are just as far away as they were last time from the bottom bracket. The bottom bracket drop, which is how far below the wheel axles the bottom bracket is, that stays the same. It is interestingly probably lower. There's more bottom bracket drop on this Domane than a lot of other bikes in the same category. The main reason for this, I think, is because they're banking on riders having larger tires, potentially shorter cranks. So as you put bigger tires on a bike, everything lifts up higher, and a higher center of mass is not necessarily a good thing for bike handling. It's not necessarily a good thing for aerodynamics. So to sort of offset the increase of the height of the bike, if we lower that bottom bracket, we can kind of bring the rider back down closer to the road. That stays the same with this Gen 5. Now, some things have changed. If I said the frame reach length was identical, the frame stack height, which is how tall the front end of the bike is, that has changed. Trek have made that a little bit higher. So it's 7 millimeters higher at the front. So I guess a bit more of a focus on comfort, higher hand position. Beyond a increased stack height with the frame, Trek have also put a really different handlebar on this bike. They've put a riser bar, a drop bar that has 2 centimeters of rise on it. So that means compared to the last Domane, if you are just swapping to the new one, riding in the hoods, your hands are actually going to be likely to be 27 mil higher than the last Domane, which is quite a lot. This new handlebar they're using is also really shallow in the drops. It's 2 centimeters shallower. So it also means that if you're riding in the drops, you're going to be roughly 27 millimeters higher in that position as well. So definitely more conservative at the front end. If we look at the back of the bike, the seat tube length has increased like 5 mil, probably doesn't really affect anything unless you're on the wrong size bike. The seat tube angle has changed. This is an interesting one. So they have made the seat tube angle steeper by 0.3 of a degree. On a large frame size, that means the seat positions are likely to be maybe half to a centimeter further forward, closer to the bottom bracket. But on top of that, they've changed the type of seat post that they're using. The old seat post had 2 centimeters of setback. The new one, they've reduced that to 5 millimeters. So ultimately, going from the 4 to the 5, the seat is likely to be around about 2 centimeters further forward compared to the previous large edition. Now, if you bring the seat further forward, that can be a little bit problematic because all of a sudden your handlebars are too close. So I've noticed Trek have increased the stem length by a centimeter on this. Last time it was a 100 mil stem. They've gone up to a 110. So that is probably a good thing. Just going back to the handlebars for a second, the other thing they've changed is the handlebars have become narrower. They are putting a narrower handlebar with flare. So instead of a 44 centimeter bar, which they had last time, they've gone to a 42 centimeter bar. This is very much in line with current industry trends. riders typically trying to get a little bit narrower and more aerodynamic at the front. But it's not super narrow, so it should still handle really well when you're standing up out of the saddle, for instance. And crank length, they have changed the crank length. It is a 170 millimeter crank on this large Domane. Last time it was 172.5. So it's gone down by one size. I reckon most people probably wouldn't notice a huge difference reducing crank length by 2.5 mil. But if we go back even further, not too long ago, these large Treks would have been coming with 175 millimeter cranks. So we're just seeing that trend of cranks actually starting to get shorter and shorter. So to summarise the changes of this new Gen 5 Domane compared to the old one, the new one has a seat position that's likely to be significantly closer to the bottom bracket. So further forward, the cockpit is kind of increased in length as well based on the longer stems, even though the frame hasn't increased in length. The frame has increased in height a little bit, so you're going to be sitting up taller on this bike, especially when you consider the stock handlebar this bike has come with. If you are someone who has ridden the older Domanes as an endurance bike but have still a relatively low stem, like you don't run any of their headset spaces, you might want to reconsider whether the new Domane is going to work for you as a stock bike. You might need to change the cockpit to a more conventional handlebar setup or a steeper stem angle if you're one of those riders. Or you could possibly consider a smaller frame size for some riders. Make sure you have a chat to your bike fitter before you pull the trigger on a frame size that is smaller than the manufacturer is recommending.